In this episode of Derp I added some AI to the sharks in the Oceanus dimension. They now chase the player around and deal melee damage with a bite attack. I'll start by loading the Olympus dimension in the main script. So this is the second dimension. And then in the shark bumper, I currently have the base class attached, so I'll detach the script and make a new one, extending bumper ship. And then I'll need to reset the health and points values. So I'll do that. And then I'll give it a speed variable, and I'll set that to 350. And then in the physics process, I'll set the linear velocity equal to the speed. So I'll make a new vector with speed on the x and 0 on the y, and then rotate it by the shark's global rotation. So this will make it move in the direction that it's facing at 350 pixels per second, I think. So as you can see, they are swimming forward, but they're rotating too much, so I'll turn up the angular damp here. So I'll just turn that up to 100. And now they aren't jittering nearly as much. So now I want to get the distance to the player, so get connector.derpstar.global position, distance to, and then the shark's global position. And if the distance is less than 700, I want the shark to turn towards the player, and then they'll swim in that direction. So I already have the turn towards in the space worm head when it looks at the player. So basically you get the target angle and then interpolate. So I'll just use global position. So now whenever they're in range, they turn towards the player and chase. I opened up the shark's mouth in GIMP, and now I'll make a skeleton for the shark, and I'll add a bone for the body, and then another one for the jaw. And then I'll move that, line it up with the jaw, and rotate. So then we'll assign the rest pose to get rid of the warnings. Next, I'll get rid of the base sprite node and add a polygon 2D instead. And then in the texture, drag the shark image, and then I'll assign the skeleton to the skeleton 2D. And then you'll click on the UV. So here, open the UV editor. And then under points, I'll just make an outline of the shark. And I'll probably change this later, because I'll want to animate more parts. But for now, so I do want to make sure that the mouth is a little more detailed around the lower jaw. Okay. And then you sync to bones. Right. First, I'll line up the image with the collision shape. And then under UV, sync to bones. And then for the jaw, zoom in, and I'll reduce the radius. So basically, all of the points around the lower jaw will be connected to the jawbone. And then I want the hinge points to be connected to the main bone. So now, when I rotate the jaw, it opens and closes the mouth. There is a bit of a gap when I close the mouth, so I'll go back to the UV editor, zoom in all the way, and I'll move these points in to be closer to the actual polygons, or the sides of the image. And I'll move that back a little bit. Now the UV and the points don't quite line up, so you can copy to UV through the edit, and now they do line up. And then you can move the jaw, and that looks a lot better. So now when I play the project, the sharks throw an error when they die because I replaced the sprite with a polygon 2D. So I'll open up the tube class. So this is from the biodome, and it's also using a polygon 2D. And I'll just copy over the function, the explode function, to the shark. So here we just get the polygon 2D texture, and then I'll set the height and width to the actual image. I'm sure you could get this programmatically, but it's easier to just hard code it right now. So now we've overwritten the explode function for the shark, and now when they die, they don't crash anymore. So now I'll set the jaw to a neutral position around there, and then I'll add an animation player. And then I'll make a new animation. And then I'll click the key by the property, and I'll go ahead and create a reset track here because I want the mouth to be there by default. And then I'll move up the timeline and open the mouth wider. Add the keyframe. And then I'll set this to 1.5 in length. So then move the timeline and I'll close the mouth and add the keyframe. And then at the end, I want it to go back, so to negative 8.5. And I'll set the keyframe there. So now I can play the animation. And I'll set it to loop for now, just for testing. So the mouth opens kind of quickly. I'll move that over a little bit. That looks better. Okay, so then I'll make sure to disable looping. Then in the shark script, I'll check if distance from the player is less than 200 and the animation player is not playing. Then I'll tell the animation player to play the chomp animation. So now when the sharks get close to the player, they'll do the bite animation. Then I'll add a new area for the bite. So an area 2D, and then a collision shape. And then I'll give it probably a circle will be fine. I'll move it over here and make it a little bigger. So now anything within this area will take damage. And then I'll move the collision shape of the actual shark back a little bit, just to give it more room so it's not bumping its nose against the player. So now I'll connect to the area body entered node or signal to the bumper. I'll rename this to bite area first and then connect to the body entered signal back to the main class. And then so I'll set the bite damage equal to 50 for now, and then we'll get overlapping bodies. So for body and get in bite area dot get overlapping bodies. And then if body.faction does not equal the shark's faction, which will be enemy, and the animation player is not playing, then we'll play the bite animation. So I can get rid of that. And then I'll add another function to deal bite damage. So this will get, oh, okay. So this is where we get the overlapping bodies. So this just checks the single body when it enters the area. So this will play the animation when the player is within range of the bite attack, because the faction will be different. So then in deal bite damage, I'll get the bodies in the overlapping area and connector dot deal damage, and then pass the shark, the body, and the damage amount. Like so. So then I'll add a new track to call methods. So a new call method track on the animation connected to bumper. And then whenever the shark completely closes its mouth, I'll right click here and insert key, and then connect to the deal bite damage function here. And I'm going to shorten the duration down to a second. So I'll move all of these points over. Set the duration to a second, and then I'll play it. So that'll be good. So now when the sharks get close to the player, you can see they do the bite attack. So one of them managed to deal some damage, but the player's killing them too quickly just from the collision. So I'll go ahead and reduce the player damage as well. So so we're dividing the velocity by 10. I'll go ahead and divide by 15, or 20 even. Do that. So I'll divide the velocity by 20 for the damage. And now they might actually have enough time to deal some damage. There we go. So as you can see, they are dealing damage now to the player. I also want to connect to the animation player finished signal. And here I'll check the overlapping bodies, and then check if the body is not in the faction, and we'll play chomp. So this will restart the animation if the shark is still within range of the player. And then I'll make the physics material unique on the shark, and I'll turn the bounce all the way down and the friction up, so this will keep the other sharks and the player from bouncing off as much. So now the sharks can bite the player and chases it around. So That's all for this episode. Thank you for watching and have a great day.